room. But we have your name and number and just an email if you want to hear more about this later. This is an introduction to the multiplication lab, and really the heart behind this is to just really introduce it and help you start thinking through what introduction or multiplication might look in your context, and just kind of share our experience in ways that we have fleshed this out. So what gives me the opportunity to be here this afternoon and share this is, and I really just champion this, is I'm a practitioner of this. This isn't something that is theory to me. This is something we actually put into practice in our church. We have established our church, and we believe this we flesh it out. And so, and if you don't believe me, you can ask Shane, Shane right there's wave. He's actually part of our leadership, and he's come through this process. And so we've seen God do some work in that. And then just give you a little bit of who I am. And so again, we replanted in 2015, and then God has blessed us, we replanted a church, became autonomous, and then the new season of our ministry was like, how do we do residency? Like, we want to grow leaders. That's what really my heart is, to build up the next generation. And so 2019, we decided to do a paid residency. And at the time, we had zero money and a lot of just like, what are we going to do? And so on actually December 1st of 2019, I wrote out this little thing, what a paid residency would look like. And December 2nd, a lady in our church says, have you ever thought of a paid residency? And I was like, yes, like right here. And so I show her, and she ended up giving $15,000 and a 3-year commitment. And so at that moment, you're just like, okay, God's up to something, but not me, because I'm like, I just don't believe that. It seems too good to be true. December 2nd, December 6th, a house across the street came available, and I shared to another partner, and they purchased the house for a residence. Now, no one has lived there, which is an enigma to I don't really know why, but because we don't allow pets, but it does attract people to see what we're doing, and hopefully, we'll eventually get somebody to live there. Also, and then at the end of it was probably a few months later, COVID happened, and we were like, okay, what's next for us? And God just showed me nothing's changed. So what really got me, 2 years of COVID was really good, because it gave me 2 years to really process, what do I want in our residency, and how do we build up leaders? Now, all of this is really, if you're in a replant or any church, really, any church in the Northwest, you are trying to think, how do I grow leaders? And a lot of us think, okay, maybe we'll bring some from the South, and I'm not against either. But really, the best leaders are the ones who live there. That live in the community that you're trying to reach. That's the best. They know the community. And so, how do you bring them? How do you process them? And so, I kind of thought through that. What does it take like? And so, if you're a pastor, just imagine if you have somebody that's far from God, and then you are going to send them out, or even just have them be the youth leader. There's got to be that's a person, right? And so what you hear is, we just need people. What I want you to think is, name that person. Make it real. Like, I need Bob to go through this process so that he can be a youth leader, a place, right? So you got people, process, and place. So I need Jim to go through this process to be this person. Like, if he's going to be a deacon, if he's going to be a pastor, if he's going to be a church planter, if he's going to be whatever he is, there's a process there. I was a plumber. So when I got out of high school, I didn't have really any direction, and God saved me, gloriously saved me, 19 years old. And then I was called into ministry, and then I met this pretty girl right here, and I was like, I want to get married. And she's like, you ain't got no money. And so I was like, okay. She's like, you should be a welder. And I'm like, I don't want to weld. But then my roommate, a buddy, said, hey, told him about a plumbing job. And I'm like, I had just happened to buy one of these weird plumbing books. It was just interesting. I was looking at it. I was like, I could maybe try to be a plumber. Now, again, this is a guy never worked with power tools, never read a tape measure. My dad never actually had a father live in my home more than 2 months. And so I knew nothing, and I go to, so here's Shawn, goes to become a plumber. And so what happened is I went to 8,000 hours of work every other Saturday, I learned the textbook on how to be a plumber, and then I practiced it. And I learned more from guys, from people. There was people in my life. And so that's really kind of helped frame me. There is somebody that knows nothing can go through a process and learn how to do something. And that's really the same with church planting, with replanting, with ministry work and we kind of moved away from that. And that's really where you learn. Like you learn by it's caught more than it's taught. You can see a guy do it and you're like, man, that guy's awesome. Or you can watch a guy, how he lives that out, and it's a lot more tangible. So that's really how I think. I think through apprenticeship type relationships, and that's where my pipeline came, is like, how do I get this person to go through this process to be used in this way? And I feel like it's my job to help coach them, to help train them, help gift them. And then really another personal side of it was was really my heart is what if we were very intentional as a pastor? I mean, I went through a lot in 20 years of ministry where they just said, get up and preach one time. And so I never knew how to preach. Like, I don't know if you guys did the 5-minute preaching thing. Like, the young preachers, get up there and do a 5-minute message. Like, that's kind of how I did. And my first message was terrible. But what if my pastor would have just been more intentional about it and wrote down how to write a speech and then listen to me preach and then let me get confident about it and then give me some, like, more intentional walking me through it? I think the process could have been a lot faster. And I think I could have maybe, sped up the journey a little more. And that's really kind of my heart behind that. And I've seen it laid out. So again, all that, when we think of introduction and multiplication, truly, if we're going to raise leaders, multiply ourselves, it's not some awesome person that's coming from without. It's not some amazing person. Because have you ever met somebody like that? Like, have you been in ministry long enough? Anybody usually that says they're amazing, I've met like none of them. Like, usually you see the other side of them. They're not that amazing. Like, again, I'm probably cynical. It's like if someone starts telling me how amazing this person is, I'm just like, I can say maybe one or two times. Man, I don't even. Maybe one time I'm like, well, yeah, the guy's pretty amazing, but rarely. And if someone is bragging about how amazing they are, like, that's even far. Like, they're not, And so how do you take like a person like myself, who is barely maybe a C, right? And God grew me. What if we could grow a lot of C's and B's into A's, and you know what I mean? Just grow the people we got. And I think that's really where the process begins. Okay, so I just want you to understand how I'm thinking. Because they're really, truly, if they're really that amazing, why would they want to work for me anyway? Like, really, that's. If they're awesome, they're going to go find their own place. They're going to not need me, And so, I just don't think they exist. It's kind of like a unicorn. I just don't think they exist. So okay. So here I'm showing you this pipeline. I'm going to give you kind of an idea of this, and then I'm going to go into the introduction part. That hopefully, if you give me your email and your phone, I'll reach out to you and see how I might walk with you. The follow-up I think is far more important than this, really. But because I want to hear what you're facing. So when I think of leadership development, I think of it as, so someone comes from without your church in community engagement or intentional relationships, and they become a guest. And so they walk through as a guest, and then if they come more than once for us, that's an attender. And then our evangelism strategy is blessed, which is to be in prayer, to listen to them, to eat with them, to serve them, to share them. And those are, I'll later explain, those are our lay leaders that are really focused on this aspect, okay? So they come, and then there's a process. And so if they show up, we want them to know Jesus. Really, that's really the heart of it. And that's where we get our mission. And so our mission is to know Jesus, be known, and own your faith. And so as they're walking through this, now again, this, from my perspective, is very structured. From their perspective, it's very organic. They won't realize they're even in a process or any kind of pathway until they're usually around here when they're deciding to make a leadership decision. And I'll even show it to them in the information meeting. I'll show them this chart, and they'll be like, "Oh, that's a great chart. Like, good for you. You can draw." They tell me, "I forgot my dice. It looks like chutes and ladders, right?" Like they don't understand. But what they have felt, they have felt accepted. They've been asked, so that meeting with the pastor, they've met me. They've just been just building relationships, trying to connect them, and sharing our faith with them. Now, again, wherever they are, this may be a quick process. This may take some time. We changed the word, so we don't do a membership class. We do an information meeting. So we named it information class, and we had nobody show up. Our membership class, no one showed up. We called it information meeting, 30 people showed up. It's like, okay, so we'll just give you information. At some point, though, they have to make a membership decision. It's because you gotta join the team. You gotta join the team. And the requirements, we look at minimums: saved, baptized, join the team. So usually there's some messy stuff to deal with. One thing that we've noticed too is when they take a baptism step, usually that takes longer for them to make that commitment for us. And then once they make that commitment, the growth goes way quickly. So we're patient. We want you to know Jesus. And so this is where our development goals come in. So again, this is a process. Again, we don't believe everybody is going to be sent out necessarily, but our hope is, right? Now, so as they walk through these workshops, we've actually shifted. Yeah, so these workshops I lead them. Really, the heart behind that is really to, with residents that are coming in, like someone that feels called in the ministry, that we're dealing with some of those things. We're just trying to build with some, maybe how to handle budgets, just practical ministry things that if outsiders, or I wouldn't say outsiders, if church members wanted to be a part of, they could be a part of that as well. So kind of one thing, when you think of this too, think of rhythm. Think of, you don't have to add a bunch of stuff. If you're the pastor and you don't have a lot of people, just think small. Like, look at your schedule, your calendar, and then create a rhythm. And so a lot of our stuff, Sunday morning is when we meet as a leadership team. Tuesday, we have a staff meeting. Tuesday night is when I do the workshop starting this fall. Fridays, we do our cohort. Again, each of those are a couple hours, but it's my normal rhythm. And so I'm not adding a bunch of stuff because you'll wear yourself out in this process, okay? So again, we're taking them through a process, and I'm showing you this just to give you kind of an idea, and my hope is that you'll start to think through your own system. Like, what does it take? What does it take to be a member of your church? What does it mean to be a committed member of your church, right? So at some point, we hope they start asking, and so every year we have a leadership retreat, and this is important to us because the question is, if you're going to build what they call a residency or a multiplication, there's got to be an invite into this system. Like, there's got to be an actual invite. And so how do you get somebody that maybe is new to their faith, just kind of work, how do you get them to take that next step? And so the way we use is this leadership retreat, which we go off campus. We try to keep it as cheap as we can, but we make everybody pay. And when I mean everybody pay, I pay, my wife pays, no kids, and because we want it to be a little bit of a sacrifice. Because now you're asking big boy questions, right? You're asking, like, how do I become a leader of a church? We all read the Bible, and we know that the qualifications of a leader are pretty high. And then we see the condition of our churches, and we're like, whew, it's pretty low, right? So we don't want to crush people with the obligations, but we want to build them up. We want to encourage them. We want to help them. And so if I pay for them to come, they assume I see them as a leader, right? And usually at this relationship level, I don't really know what's going on. And the truth is, you can't really tell if they're a leader or not. It takes a little bit of time. It really, unfortunately, it takes once they become a leader to realize the kind of leader they're going to be. Like, once you give them that title, and it took me a little bit to realize this, you give them a title, then you get what you really got. So you want better kick the tires as much as you can, make the process. Now, the issue too, what happens to us is time is an issue. You need a youth guy, right? You need a youth guy. You don't want to take you need somebody else. You need whatever the process, you need that place filled. And you can't fill all these spots. And so this guy seems okay. You feel like he wants him, but there should be, and if he doesn't want to pay for himself to go, we just take it as like, Jesus is enough, right? Like we just truly believe that there's a cost. And one thing that's helped me in this, and this might help you as well, think of the cost it took you to be where you're at in ministry. Like it's cost you. It's cost you. I mean, when we moved to Medford, it cost us every dime. I'm not saying just some. It cost us every dime we had to get there. I remember pulling up to my wife. I was like, "Look, there's no way these people can scare us off because we ain't got nowhere to go." So it's like we're here. Like it cost us everything, and it was a faith move, trusting God. And I believe God saw that. Like God was nothing for God, And so, so this leadership retreat. We make them pay, and then we show them what a leader is. So we talk about what leadership looks like. We also usually go through a book, and again, if we chat on the phone, I can share more about what that looks like. So another thing that we do is so if you come to the leadership retreat, doesn't mean that you are automatically a leader. What it is that it's beginning the conversation. So at that point, we show them what a leader looks like, and now we're trying to walk with them to see where they really are and where they need to grow. And so it's really caring and loving and relationally, connected. And so we're trying to grow them where they're at. And so a couple things that we do is this is what we think a leader looks like. So we take the servant mindset, and I believe in Matthew 20:26, where Jesus says, if you're going to be the greatest, be the least. And I really, truly want to live that out in my own life. I'd want to be great. I love winning. I'm a Green Bay Packer fan, and I want them to win every year. And this year is our year, right? I don't care. I don't care if they win by half a point. If it's a win, it's a win. Like, that's all I care. Like, even if it's not possible, I know, but I would want them to win that way. Even if it was like a technical, like the bad call on the ref and they won, oh, well, sorry, you should have a better ref, right? Like, I just like winning. And so Jesus said, hey, you want to be a winner? Be the last. Be the least. Man, a loser like me can do that, right? I can win all the time. I can serve. I can be a servant. Now, again, we all love the idea of being a servant or a slave until you're called or treated like one, right? Like, you get treated like one, you're like, wait, you know who I am, right? But truly, that's how servant leadership is Jesus' model, and that's really what we practice. So what we say is last is a learner. So when we look at our multipliers, what we call them, or our lay leaders, our church leaders, they're a learner. They have a desire to learn. It means they're trying to learn about Jesus. They're coming to church. They're faithfully attending. They're in a life group. They're trying to learn. They're growing. I may suggest a book, and they read that. They can listen to Audible. Like, that's one thing that's great. Is one kid told me, he's like, I don't read anything. I'm like, here, listen to this book with me. And he listened to it. I was like, listen to this book. He listened to it. And so he's got like a collection of 50 books he's listened to, and he's a learner, right? He's learning. And so that helps with a lot of like blue collar guys. That really helped. But so a learner, and then this is one important to me too, is accountable. So if you're a learner and you're accountable, so when you make decisions, you're accountable to the team, you're accountable to the pastor, you're accountable to the church. You're really like you're making so you just can't do what you want to do. Now you're like living in community, and just like I can't do what I want without talking to my wife or my kids, or like there's some responsibility there. And so there's maturity in that. And accountability is probably the most difficult for a lot of people to, especially it seems like people that have been in a church a long time where there was little accountability, they see it as like judgy or over. But I see accountability as leadership. So I'll give an example. So we were doing the finances a few months ago, and there were some things that weren't as what I wanted them to look like. The money hadn't come in, and so there was this kind of it wasn't bad, but it was just like, man, I just feel like it could be better. And so as I was bringing it to the finance committee, and we started looking at this stuff, and what happened, it wasn't like being scolded. They were asking me questions. But what was amazing is they saw it not as my problem, it was our problem. They took ownership. And so we now, as we face those things, we're together. Like, this is us. This is not me, And so it was just so freeing to know you're not alone. And so that's one thing, accountability. And then a servant, which is obvious by you can identify if they're serving in some area of ministry. And we don't expect everything. Now, what happens in this, and this is probably the shocking for most people, and I don't know why it is, but you have to be a tither. You can't be a leader of Living Hope Church without being a tither, period. Like, there's no, like, now, we won't come at you, but that will be discussed of your next step at some point. So it's never like aggressive. But again, you got to be honest. You're not a leader if you're not leading on that. Like, if you're not committed, like, even if you're like a charge of a dog shelter, there's a point where you have to financially contribute to that, to be a charter member of that or whatever, right? Like, there has to be some giving. And one thing like, it's truth. It's absolutely you are or you're not. Like, you're with it or you're not. Like, you don't give there's a truth to it. And so to me, it helps me understand where you really are. Also, just think, if you truly believe in the mission and the vision of Living Hope Church or the community church you're a part of, that you will give sacrificially. You're going to be a part of that, and that should be a small tithe is nothing. Like, tithe is nothing. I'll be a part of what God's doing. Like, that's nothing. That's a minimum. And so those things really what help me understand what a leader looks like, okay? So when we come to, so then we do a personal evaluation or personal assessment. NAM actually provides this where you can do a self-assessment, and you can really, what it does is it kind of sees some strengths. Now, what I've done in ours is we've used a church planter one. Not that everybody's a church planter, but what it does is it helps them understand that we want to plant churches. It's just getting everybody on the same language, same page. And so they're like, they score low on some of these things. Well, these are just opportunities where we can develop them, we can grow them, and they can see. And so what we're also teaching on this part is leadership is basically pouring yourself out. When Paul writes to Titus and Timothy about qualifications of pastor, he brings up their home and the way they handle their money and the way they raise their children. Why? Because it all begins to be laid out there of who they are as a leader. And again, what you find, like, that's pretty difficult to do. It's very humbling to do. So you really have to just kind of let God. The truth is, you're not everything. You're not that awesome. Like, the reason why I'm a leader at a church is because God's grace in my life, and not because of how amazing I am. Now, God has grown. This is what I also think in my own personal life is I know where God found me, right? I know where he found me, and I know what he's done in my life. And so it shows the grace of God. Things that people think are strengths in my life, that's God's grace. And so just pour it out, and you find when you have a leadership group that are willing to be honest and transparent, I don't ever have to put on airs to go to church. My team knows me. The people know me. Like, I don't have to pretend to be another version of myself. I want to be the best version of myself, but I don't have to put on, like, I don't put my kids up in front and pretend like everything's good. We're people, they're knuckleheads, sometimes I'm a knucklehead, my wife is never a knucklehead, so that's, so again, this is our pathway. Now, our goal is that everybody be a multiplier. And what a multiplier is they know Jesus, they're known in faith community, they own their faith, and then they're bringing somebody with them. Like, that's the minute. And what we see that is a disciple making disciple. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to grow them to be that. And so so what I believe has happened and what's happening is they've said yes to come to church. They've come back. They said yes to membership. They've said yes to leadership retreat. They've said yes to a personal assessment. They've said yes to being a multiplier. And as a multiplier, look how close a calling, like, God's using this it's not such a far step, and so they're learning, and there's a lot of, and again, what's amazing about this is it helps them, they grow together. Like, we're a community, we're a faith community, that's the core of our church, okay? So this gives us a process to help to be disciple-making disciples with the hope of a calling into vocational ministry. And then if they come to our residency, the very minimum, we want them to be committed soul winners and multipliers of themselves. So the very least, if you can just duplicate yourself as you share Christ with people, Like those are the two things, and God will figure out the rest. Okay, and so that's how. And then all this other stuff just comes with NAM assessment. And again, we're trying to help them take their steps. And a lot of times where, you're moving away from just theory to action. So we give them a spot to lead, and they're gonna grow naturally, and they're gonna grow quicker than I did, because they have assessments, they're having good, honest feedback. And what's amazing to me is I'm not the smartest guy in our church, like by far. And our multiplier team, our lay leaders, they average about 10 hours a week. They serve, they do great things. And as we have committed to build them up, it's kept us, our finances steady. It's growing leaders, and then they're growing leaders, and so it's kind of, so this is our process. I'm willing to give you this, show you this, just kind of, this is nothing, this is really just to help you, a starting point, community engagement, intentional relationships with hopes to send people out. That's really the heart of that. Okay, so this gives you an idea of what, when you think of multiplication, think of a person. So I'm going to pick on Shane because he's here. Okay, Shane is a guy that really champions this model. And Shane, he came to our church about 5 years ago, and he came one time with his soon-to-be wife. They hadn't been married yet. They came a second time. They became attenders. Eventually, they both saw themselves, and how he came to Christ was he comes to me one day. He's like, hey, on Sunday, I'd like to give my life to Christ. It was like a Wednesday. I was like, why not do it today? Gave his life to Christ. Him and his wife married. And the way he came to our church was he came as an intentional relationship with the band. He can shred guitar, like he plays really good guitar, and he does it. And so it's great to have me as a pastor because I love rock music. So he could it was never too loud for me. So it's like, yes, So we were made for each other. Well, and again, I've seen him go through a lot of heartache and a lot of shifting, how God has done some stuff in his life. The enemy was in his life, but he made a decision to be a member. We see him grow to come to the retreat, and now we see him as a leader of our church. He's only been saved 5 years, and he brings he's got a kind heart. He's really committed to the church, and his wife really as well. And so what they're doing as multipliers is they're growing these next residents. They're growing. So you have to outserve. To be a leader of our church, you have to outserve people that are voluntarily giving 10 hours or more a week. So you got to put your A game on there. You got to work. And so we have, and they're faithful. What's amazing is our disciple-making disciple, our multiplier team, they miss maybe 1 or 2 Sundays a year. And you again, you can't, that's pretty amazing. And if they aren't, they're always communicating where they're at. They're leaders of our church. And so I feel like it's super easy, but it seems like people are like, well, how do you grow a leader? It takes time, though. Just like growing your kid, it takes time. It takes a process. But really, so it's a process. So when you think of multiplier in our context, just think of disciple-making disciple. So how do you grow someone that's far from God to be a disciple-making disciple? Think through your own process. I'm going to ask I'll answer some questions now, and then we can maybe go a little more. But go ahead.
So, all levels of your leadership go through this process?
Yes, sir. Yep. At this point, we haven't really. So we would say, by the time you'd have to become this way, calling to be a deacon, an elder, and that's where it would come in as a pastor. That's what that means. So pastor, deacon, lay elder. So yes, they would have to. We're still growing them, but again, we try to stay true to the biblical qualifications too. So because I don't think those things are to be compromised. So it takes time. Yep. And even a resident. So we have several residents have come out of state. So to think of a hopper, we would love to plant or send out one person a year. Well, in our context, people don't go to church much. Young people don't go to church, and so we got, so if we can fill the hopper with some outsiders for a while until we can start to get some of our people in our church, our community, and we're getting, so now we'll have 6 residents coming in September total. So they've come all year, whatever. So 6 total, and 3 of them are from from SOU, which is the community college there. So even if you came out of state, you still have to go through the membership class. You still have to. So you have 2 months to kind of walk through, learn the heart of the church, because you want to get them connected to the culture. And then one thing I tell them is like, hey, serve the multipliers. Figure out what they're doing and help them do what they're doing. And the way we kind of picture it is, I think of my job as the guy on curling. You guys seen curling, right? I'm the sweeper dude. Like, all my job is to make sure I clear out. I don't know what they really do, but it seems important and it seems busy and it seems like that's a good job to do, right? So I feel like that's my job. Is someone says, hey, I feel like I'm called to do this. My job is just go figure out how to get them to do it. Help them. Any other questions on this? Yeah, I would say so. To become a multiplier, yes. I was talking to a couple guys from the North American Mission Board the other day, and they were saying, I feel like it's like 5 to 6 years. If you got somebody that didn't know, that came to Christ, the minimum 6 years to be a lead guy, and they have. Yes. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. But I do think it can continue to go quicker. Like, I think the more you get, so as we bring younger believers in, my children are seeing these young adults live for Christ, and they're like, you can see the effect on them. It's quicker. But they've also been raised in church, Anything, Shane, or if you guys have anything to add or that you think that's been processed through this, again, don't feel pressure, but. Yeah, it's awesome. That to me is like what it's about. To see a guy, see someone that's far from God, now is a leader of our church and faithful, and truly would do anything I ever asked him to do. Like truly, like that. It's very humbling. And so, but yeah, that just kind of gives you a big picture. Is there any other questions or anything? Yeah, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Our problem is getting the younger ones who are going to be able to come in and cover all those bases between them. Most everybody's 60 at least.
Right. I think too, though, this is a retirement community too, right? So like by the time you move here, you're probably 60. Yeah. So I think it would just look different. You know what I mean? Like, I think one thing you guys have done well, knowing Ron, is you guys have connected with the culture you're at, and that's really what you're trying to do, is just be contextual. And so your pathway may look different. And again, this is what I would say too. You're different as a leader. Like, you're a different leader than me. And so you have a different story than me. Like, it's not a negative or a positive, it's just different, it's unique. And, you just got to figure out where you are and process what that looks like. So just talking to Gary today, like he's taken some of this stuff and he's made it around his personality and around, what he's doing. And that's what's awesome about it. Again, we all have a process. We do have a process, but I don't think many of us have ever put some sort of system to it, And so, and I know guys that have now the residency for us, it's more hands-on, and it's I just feel because how I got taught was I was a youth pastor, and then I went to seminary online. And so I had real life experience and that's how I was trained as a plumber, is I got real life experience that's how I'm doing my DMin program. I'm doing real life experience with getting an education. And so those things that's how I will model our residency. It's let's see you lead this, let's see you preach this Sunday. Let's see you do this, and then get some feedback for that. But it's been a joy. It's also just been, it's good to see, the process. And I feel like we still have a lot more work to do to clarify what that looks like. Let me go back. Let me do this. So.
We found out that we have a home that came by, he's an evangelist, he's much younger. He's able to reach the community and bring in the younger adults that we haven't been able to reach at all, just because of his age.
Yes.
He draws in the younger ones where Ron, he's one of our younger ones, and so he doesn't draw the younger people. They need somebody that they can relate to.
Yep.
So we recognize that we don't have that spot filled.
Yeah, that's good. And I think the fact that you guys are aware of that and now thinking through what does that look like differently, these are, and I'm the same way. I realize, so I'll be 45, which seems young. It's young, but not to a 20-year-old. They see me as an old man with 4 kids, right? And they're not wrong. But so what we do is, what I do for that is also share the pulpit with someone. I find, you grow the guy, and then you give him reps, and you're patient. We have a young man, he didn't go through our process. So Jordan, you guys know Jordan, I think you know Jordan. So Jordan, he came as I was trying to work through this stuff out. And so he has a tick about him because we tried a bunch of stuff that didn't work. But seeing him walk through the process, he's incredible. It's incredible to see the kind of leader that he's going to be, because he's learning things that I learned at 40, at 27, 25. So it's man, and then he brings a younger group. And so we call ourselves a mullet. We're a mullet together. I'm business, he's party. And so we kind of make a good, we're like a mullet. And so we make a good team. And you see it. I walk in, I'm go to work, do this. He comes in, he's this big party, shows up, and it's just awesome. It's awesome how God puts us. And what's funny too, when we first met, we would probably have both agreed, I don't know if we're a good fit, but to see how God's brought us together in the process. And so a couple things just to think through, I think this will help you, is when you think through the roadmap, you think of discover, develop, and deploy. Well, if you're going to discover, develop, and deploy, which is person, process, place, right? You want to first, what you're trying to really do is grow self-leaders. That's that first phase. And then leading others. So your process should start thinking how to grow them, how to lead others, how to lead leaders. That's where those that are part of our residency we're trying them to lead the multipliers, which are lay leaders. So we're developing that, and then leading missions that's being sent out, and then launching missions. And so we hope to see, again, I feel like the caliber of young men that God's going to use, they're going to do greater things. And this is one thing that I think you have to have in this, if you're going to truly be multiplication-minded, is you got to champion the wins of others more than yours. It's really not about you. And it is a shift, because we all want to be the rock star. We all want to be the guy that takes the shots. But we have to be the hero maker. And how I got Jordan to come, I can even remember the day. We were sitting in a coffee shop, and he was in Arkansas. He's Asian, and he's from Arkansas, so he's like a Southern Asian. Like he's a unique personality. he likes deep fried sushi. But so we're sitting there, and I told him, and he said, "This is what got him." I told him, and I said it. So I was like, "Listen, you winning is me winning. Like you winning is me winning." And it wasn't a few years later that a guy comes up to Jordan and says, "Hey, how did he get?" Or he was like, "How do I get a guy like you to come help me do what I'm doing?" Young guys are not looking for that. They really aren't. What they're looking for is somebody to help them win. They don't want to do it alone. They want some coaching. They want some help, but they want somebody else to do it. And how I kind of figure out in my mind is the way it works for me is when my kids grow up and be doctors and lawyers, I'm not going to be like, "Well, how dare them?" They can never, like, their success is a part of my success. Like, I'm going to be so excited. I'm never jealous of my own kids. And if you are, like, that's a weird, creepy person, right? So the fact that I could have a small taste of what they're going to look like, I cannot wait. So when someone says, "Man, that Jordan, he's preaching better than you are," I'm winning. And this is how it went full circle. One day, I was like telling my son, he was young at the time. He was really naive and ignorant, didn't know any better. But what he said was, I was kind of, how you fish for compliments every now and then? It's like, "So who's your favorite preacher?" And he's like, and Jordan had only preached like 5 or 6 times total. He's like, "Jordan?" It's like, you cut me, So, and here I had, I've been to seminary. Jordan's just starting. I preach more, and I'm like, and so what it dawned on me though is, if I help him win, he will help reach my son, which will help me win. His win is my win, And so you have to, if you're going to think through this, you're going to have to open yourself up. You're going to have to be willing to be questioned. I think I was wondering, why did the generation before us not really want that? Most of the pastors I was under, they don't like to be questioned. They wanted, they're again, it's not against them. They were self-starters. They're never quit. They're just that generation, right? The greatest generation. And so part of them are part of that. And so, it's nothing against them. It's a very vulnerable spot to be when your personal time and your pride, all these things are being examined because they're trying to figure out how to do it, and they want to do it better than you. And so the more you let them win and more you help them. So again, this kind of gives you an idea. And so I think this right here, when we think of people, plan, places, and I'll finish right here. So just think through, maybe make a list of people in your church. Think of the places where you need servants, and how are you going to grow them. And that could be planting, replanting, youth ministry, kitchen guy, donut getter, whatever, right? Like, how do you move them? There should be a process. And so I just encourage you. I appreciate any other questions, anything else?
I do have a couple of questions.
Okay.
It sounded like there's 2 entry points in your profit.
Okay, yep.
One is the person that's far from God that you're going to reach.
Yep.
Your workers are in your harvest.
Yep.
And then you said something about residency. How are you using that word? What's the
So when I think of residency, it's actually looking at like vocational, like somebody that wants to be in ministry. And
these people that are coming from outside because you have a process
yep.
that say, "Hey, we're in need of someone that's going to mentor and develop us," and so they seek you out.
Yep.
For that.
Yep. And how I did that is I went basically to colleges and places and showed them, "Hey, we got a residency, we got a house." So just basically sharing that.
Okay, that makes sense to me. I work for an association in Texas.
Okay.
And we're looking at developing leaders, and we're doing a lot of the things that I saw, but I've never seen a equipment diagram like that.
Okay. Yeah, and I'll send it to you.
You put words and pictures to things that we're doing, but I think we can do much better when we begin to pick apart that
And if you make sure you put your email, and I'll reach out to you, and I'll give you everything I got. And what's cool too is Jordan is the one that does the imagery. Like him and I have fights. We sit there and we argue. Like there was times where it was almost going to blows. And he finally he put it on. So we work together. Like we are the party. I'm telling you. Like it's good how God's put people in my life.
One thing that we have caught on to, which you really did hit on it with Jordan, is that we made a huge leadership development mistake when we started developing leaders for us.
Yep.
We developed them for our church. We didn't develop them for the kingdom's sake. And this generation is looking for someone who will develop them for what God's called them to do. And they're
Yep.
not interested in coming and being part of your process. They're interested in somebody investing in them. And
Yep.
as long as you do that, then they're the right leadership.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and again, there is it's a faith move. It's a shift. Because I have needs and I don't want them to go. Yeah. I got a couple others. No, I get it. Yeah. Yeah, it's good. Yep.
People are coming to you now.
Yep. Nope. Again, I appreciate you guys. Again, I'll if you put your email and your phone number, I'll definitely reach out to you and just to encourage you any way I can. And so I appreciate your time. And let me pray for us, and let's just see what God might do with some of this. Jesus, we love you. We thank you. I just thank you for just how you have blessed each one of us. Lord, it's been a great weekend, and we thank you so much for the hospitality of First Baptist Florence and just the Oregon Mission Coalition, Lord God, how they've just been so good and hospitable to us, and just a great opportunity to be just encouraged. And I pray that you just maybe even use something we said today to encourage one of these leaders, Lord God. We just thank you so much. I pray that you just help us as we serve you, and we just thank you for all that you do. In Jesus' name, amen.
Okay. Check.
Test.
All right. It's our time. Okay, we are going to be able to do. We're going to be able to do the old rugged cross. She's here.
I know. Oh. There should be. Hello. Oh.